If you've ever pushed a broken-down car, you already understand how building wealth actually works. The first few seconds are brutal. You lean into it with everything you've got, your legs are shaking, nothing seems to happen, and for a moment you almost wonder if the car is even moving. Then, inch by inch, it starts rolling. Once it's moving, keeping it moving becomes surprisingly easier. Wealth works almost the same way. The journey from a net worth of $0 to $300,000 usually feels painfully slow. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because almost all of the progress comes from you asterisk. Your paycheck, your discipline, your willingness to keep investing even when it feels like nothing is changing. And that's exhausting. Let's say you invest $1,500 every month. During the first few years, your portfolio barely grows on its own. Most of the increase comes from the money you're putting in, not from investment returns. It almost feels unfair. You save for an entire year, maybe $18,000, and your investments only grow by a few $1,000s. Meanwhile, the market goes up one week, down the next, and you're thinking, seriously, this is what everyone gets excited about. Honestly, almost everyone feels that way. Nobody talks about how boring the middle part is. Social media loves the finish line. It loves the millionaire screenshots, the luxury homes, and the stories of people retiring early. What it doesn't show is the decade before that, the years filled with automatic deposits, ignored temptations, and saying maybe later over and over again. That's where real wealth is built. And here's something that completely changes your perspective. When your net worth reaches around $300,000, a good year in the stock market might increase your investments by tens of thousands of dollars. Think about that for a second. Your money could grow by more than many people save in an entire year. Not because you suddenly became smarter. Not because you found a secret investment. Simply because time has been quietly doing its job. That's the moment many investors describe as feeling different. Not magical. Just different. You stop checking your portfolio every single day because you finally understand that tomorrow doesn't matter nearly as much as the next 10 years. It's kind of like planting a tree. The first few years you're watering what looks like a tiny stick in the ground. It doesn't provide shade, it doesn't look impressive, your neighbors probably don't even notice it. But underneath the surface, the roots are spreading. And once those roots are strong enough, the growth above the ground starts happening much faster. Money behaves the same way. The roots are your habits. Budgeting. Investing consistently. Avoiding unnecessary debt. Living below your means without feeling deprived. Those habits don't make exciting YouTube thumbnails, but they create extraordinary results over time. Now here's where many people accidentally sabotage themselves. They finally build a respectable net worth, and then they decide it's time to reward themselves. A luxury SUV. A bigger house than they actually need. Expensive monthly payments that quietly eat away at the financial progress they've spent years creating. There's nothing wrong with enjoying your money. In fact, you should. Life isn't about collecting the biggest investment account possible and never having fun. But there's a huge difference between spending from a position of strength and spending because you think you've made it. At $300,000, you're not finished. You're entering the most powerful stage of the journey. This is where patience starts paying you back. This is where compound growth slowly becomes your partner instead of your distant dream. And maybe the hardest part. Most people never realize they're standing at this incredible turning point. They celebrate promotions. They celebrate new cars. They celebrate buying bigger homes. But they almost never celebrate becoming financially stronger. Maybe that's because strength is quiet. It doesn't demand attention. It doesn't show off. It simply keeps growing year after year while everyone else is chasing the next shiny thing. And if you can recognize the value of this stage, if you can resist the temptation to believe you're either rich or still broke, you give yourself something incredibly rare. Momentum. And once financial momentum is on your side, it becomes much harder to stop than to keep going. Have you ever noticed how everyone seems to celebrate the obvious financial milestones? Your first paycheck, your first $10,000 saved, buying a house, reaching a six-figure salary, maybe even hitting $1 million in investments one day. But there's one milestone almost nobody talks about. And honestly, that's strange. Imagine checking your net worth one evening. You open your banking app, maybe glance at your investment account, subtract what's left on your mortgage, and there it is. $302,847. No fireworks. No congratulatory emails. No friends texting you saying, "Wow, you finally made it." The next morning you still wake up, make your coffee, head to work, and life feels exactly the same. That's why so many people completely overlook this point in their financial journey. They think, well, it's not $1 million yet, it doesn't really matter. But that's actually where the mistake begins. My name is Nick, and I spend way too much time thinking about money, financial psychology, and why two people earning almost the same income can end up living completely different lives 20 years later. And the more I study how wealth is actually built, the more I realize that the most important milestones are usually the quiet ones. They're the moments nobody posts about on social media because, honestly, they don't look very impressive from the outside. The funny thing about money is that it rarely changes your life overnight. It changes your options. Very slowly. Almost invisibly. Until one day you look back and realize you're standing somewhere you never thought you'd reach. In that $300,000 mark. It's one of those invisible turning points. Not because it's a magical number. Not because some financial law suddenly changes. But because by the time you've accumulated a net worth of around $300,000, you've probably done something much more valuable than simply earning money. You've built habits. You've survived market crashes. You've resisted lifestyle inflation at least a few times. You've learned that investing isn't exciting most days, it's actually kind of boring. And boring is surprisingly profitable. Think about it. Anyone can get lucky once. Someone can buy a cryptocurrency at exactly the right moment. Someone else can inherit money. Someone can even make a huge paycheck for a year or two. But building a genuine $300,000 net worth usually takes consistency, month after month, year after year, quiet decisions that nobody notices. Skipping purchases. Investing when everyone else is panicking. Continuing to contribute during boring markets. Saying not yet when you could have said, why not? None of those decisions feel exciting in the moment. Actually, they often feel frustrating. Because while your friends are upgrading their cars every few years, you're wondering whether your perfectly fine car can survive another winter. While everyone else is taking luxury vacations, you're comparing flight prices on 3 different websites, hopping to save another $100. And honestly, sometimes that feels ridiculous. You even question yourself. Am I missing out? Should I just enjoy the money now? We've all had those thoughts. But here's what most people never realize. Every smart financial decision you make isn't just buying an investment. You're buying future freedom. You're buying choices your future self hasn't needed yet. And that's exactly why this milestone matters so much. Because at around $300,000, something subtle begins to happen. Your money slowly starts working hard enough that it doesn't rely entirely on you anymore. Not completely. Not yet. But for the first time, you can actually see the machine beginning to run on its own.